Tonight, what is Kevin McCarthy so afraid of? Multiple Republican sources tell our Jamie Gangel that the House Minority Leader issued a blanket threat to freshman Republicans that any who join the select committee investigating the deadly insurrection, invited by Pelosi to do so if they were, would lose their committee seats. This as Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney accepted an offer from Pelosi to do just that and join 7 Democrats on the committee, saying oath to the Constitution comes before partisan politics, a move that McCarthy slammed to Manu Raju.
You haven't even criticized some of your own members like Andrew Clyde, who said that it was a normal tourist visit that day, yet she can lose her committee assignments for wanting to investigate what happened. Why would you criticize
I did not
Andrew Clyde?
Let me be very clear. I'm not threatening anybody with committee assignments. What I'm saying is it was shocking to me that if a person is a Republican, they get their committee assignments from the Republican conference. For somebody to accept committee assignments from Speaker Pelosi, that's unprecedented.
Manu Raju is out front. Manu, it is very clear McCarthy and his conference want no part of this committee or any committee, I guess.
Yeah, no question about it. They are concerned about where this committee could go. They're concerned about taking back the House majority in 2022. That is the overriding concern for Kevin McCarthy. And it's still unclear, Poppy, at this hour, what Kevin McCarthy will do with the 5 appointments that he gets to the committee. He's in a bit of a difficult position because the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, ultimately could veto picks that she doesn't like if McCarthy chooses people potentially who downplayed the Capitol insurrection, people who have espoused conspiracies, people who voted to overturn the electoral results. It's unclear if he'll choose people from that camp. It's also difficult for him to find other Republicans, including moderates and people in swing districts. And talking to a number of Republican House members today, it was clear virtually none of them want to serve on this committee. They viewed it as a lose-lose proposition, something that could put them crosswise with the former president, Donald Trump, or at the very least, they would, if they were sided with Trump, they could be accused of whitewashing history, which makes a big decision on McCarthy's plate. Will he move forward with naming picks? Will he not do it? Will he boycott? We get some expectation that ultimately he will choose to name some choices to the committee. Now, the committee does still plan to move forward. They do plan to have their first hearing with Capitol Police officers to detail their experiences from that day, and they will go far, they could go long. The chairman of the committee, Benny Thompson, told me that this could go on and through next year. This is not going to be done by the end of this year, and I asked him, will you call in former President Donald Trump? He did not. He said he's not opposed to calling him in, and he's also open to calling in those Republican members of Congress who had conversations with Trump ahead of January 6th.
Okay. That would include Kevin McCarthy. Manu Raju, thanks very much out front. Now, Mike Shields, he is currently a paid strategist for House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, also former RNC Chief of Staff. Mike, good evening. Thanks for taking the time. Look, Kevin McCarthy could have supported a bipartisan committee like 35 Republicans in the House voted to do. He didn't, even after Speaker Pelosi literally gave in on nearly all his demands outlined in that February 22nd letter, like equal representation by Democrats and Republicans, co-equal subpoena power. But he didn't. Why is he dead set against getting answers here and investigating the insurrection?
Well, this is a partisan committee, and I disagree with you. Kevin McCarthy, yes, I am a paid advisor to Kevin, but I don't talk to him about this stuff because it's official business. But from a political perspective, this is a partisan committee. And Kevin did propose to do a bipartisan committee that would look at political violence. For instance, his colleague Steve Scalise was shot on a baseball field through political violence. Why would we only focus on January 6th? And the reason is pretty simple. Democrats know they're in a terrible position in 2022 to keep the House. They want to drum this up for political purposes, and they just keep talking about it over and over again. And so now they've created a committee where Pelosi gets sign-off even on any of the appointments that a Republican would make. So if you're in the minority
and you don't get every single thing you want, that last thing that he wanted wasn't even in this February 22nd letter. He added it later after Pelosi gave him literally everything he outlined in this letter. If you're in the minority, you don't get everything you want, then you don't look at an attack on the Capitol even when you were inside of it. Is that right?
This was a partisan process from the very beginning. The first proposal that Nancy Pelosi made was that it wouldn't be equal, that they would be in charge of the process. Here we are now. Look, she's basically gotten what she originally proposed, which is they're in charge of the process. It's political theater. There are currently, yesterday, the Washington Post that said that 12 more people in one day were arrested for this. The FBI is investigating this. There's actually juries and indictments happening, which, by the way, is great. I'm for that. I support the Capitol Police. I believe anyone who did anything on January 6th that's illegal should go to jail. That's exactly
Fine,
what
but
should
Kevin
happen.
McCarthy has made, thank you for stating that you want answers here. Kevin McCarthy clearly doesn't from any sort
That's just not true.
of committee.
It's not true.
Does he
They're
have
not,
a
because they're
personal?
not
Mike,
looking
just
for
let me
answers.
finish
They're
my
looking for
qu-
politics. They're looking to win
ask the
elections and make it
questions.
political.
Just let me get a question out. You answer it. We'll go back and forth on that. Does he have a personal conflict of interest here? Because remember, he was talking to President Trump in the weeks leading up to January 6th. He supported and carried on the big lie. And he could be, as Manu just reported again, called as a witness because of his phone call with President Trump. Is he personally afraid that he may be vulnerable in this investigation?
No, and I'm just repeating what he's spoken on the record about that. And so he's made that clear and he's clarified that. But here's the thing. What you have to remember is this is all about politics. This is political theater. Nothing is going to be accomplished here.
The
And
Benghazi
hang on, you said I
investigation
could
to get
answer.
to the truth.
Papa, you said you're going to ask questions that you said I could answer.
But
I'm going to answer the question.
I'm asking.
I am. This is about politics. That is the answer to the question. Benny Thompson just came out and said, actually, we may not just stick to our old deadline of the end of the year. We may just keep doing this forever. And that tells you everything you need to know about this. This is a political issue. And by the way, as a campaign operative, as a Republican,
Yes.
I'm kind of glad. If the Democrats want to run on 22 about January 6th, which affects no one's lives in this country every day, Republicans are going to run on securing the border.
Wait, hold
They're
on.
gonna-
January 6th affects no one's lives in this country?
This commission is not going to affect people's lives.
But
no, of course not.
how could it not having
it's not
answers
gonna
to
put
an
people to work.
ongoing threat?
It's not going to help them with their taxes.
An ongoing threat. Mike, an ongoing threat, a life or death threat, according to DHS and the FBI.
And that's why the FBI is investigating it. A
continues.
political theater has no bearing
Look,
on that. All that
do
is
you
about
remember,
politics.
do I need to remind you what Kevin McCarthy said about Benghazi and that commission? Let's find the truth wherever the truth takes us.
And you know
Why
what?
is
In
it
that
different
commission,
this time?
Republicans didn't have sign off on Democrats getting on the commission. That's a great example. Republicans did not have sign off on who they put on their committee. Democrats have created a partisan process where they have sign off on it. And so what's the point? That is not going to solve any problems in this country. It's actually going to make them worse. We should either investigate all of the political violence that happened in this country last year, going all the way back to when members of Congress were actually shot, or we should say for what this is. The FBI is investigating it. That should happen. That should carry on. There are bipartisan committees in Congress that are actually looking at this. This is a sham political process that Nancy Pelosi has created, and Republicans are absolutely right to focus on the real issues American people care about.
One more question for you, Mike. Help me understand this. Liz Cheney is as conservative a Republican as you get. I don't need to tell you her voting record. You know it, 96% conservative rating. Why is Kevin McCarthy so worried about Liz Cheney accepting this position from Speaker Pelosi?
Well, he's not worried about it. I mean,
He made it very clear today.
No, what he made clear today, and he clarified it in the clip you showed, is that when you get your committee assignments in the House, they are granted to you by the conference together. They vote on your committee assignments. And it's just telling the reality of the situation. If you're a Republican and you go work on a partisan sham committee with this Democratic speaker, your colleagues are going to be upset with you and they're going to hold you accountable for that. And all Kevin is doing is telling the truth that that's the reality of what happens when you do that.
It could have been bipartisan. Mike
It could have
Shields.
been. It could have been a long time ago if they'd agreed to have the things that Kevin had proposed. They chose not to do that. We're in a partisan world. That's Washington, D.C. Everyone knows this is a political game. And I think Republicans are going to move on to the issues that actually matter in the election.
I think the answers here matter a lot. Mike Shields, we'll have you back. Thank you for the time.
Thanks.